Hey, Councillor Hardy, can you hear me okay?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Fortunately, but unfortunately, you can hear me.
And will we see their hands go up on the screen if they want to talk?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, if everyone's ready to go, then I'll call the meeting to order. Well, I have to look at my page to remember the date, the August 11th, 2020 Sewage Commission meeting. And I will start by recognizing that we are on the unceded territories of the Comox First Nation. And I will move right into item C, which is management report. Somebody will move that. We've received that.
Move it.
Thanks very much. And are there any questions about the management report? Okay, is anyone opposed to receiving the management report? And not seeing any, that's received unanimously. If you're on Zoom and I miss that you put your hand up, feel free to turn your mic on and just speak up. We'll move down to section D, the Sewage Management Advisory Committee minutes. Second. Thanks very much. Are there any questions or comments on that? And it's just for information. So is anyone opposed to receiving it? Not seeing any. That will be unanimous. And number 2 is the COVID-19 response and renewal Comox Valley Sewage Service Report. And with that, I'll pass it over to staff.
Thank you very much, Chair and Commissioners. And Chris LaRose is here today. He will present this report and answer any of your questions.
Oh, hold on, I got you here. How's that?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. So all services and functions were asked to prepare a renewal plan to help guide the community or support the community through the renewal phase of the pandemic with a focus on finding efficiencies, innovations, and collaborations. So this service is funded by requisition with all of the cost allocated between the participants based on the amount of wastewater they generate. So we're not therefore projecting any decrease in revenue or wastewater generation for that matter. So we went through the financial plan and identified several opportunities for reducing the revenue requirements for the service. And largely given the essential nature of the service and also because we run the service quite lean, we weren't able to identify any opportunities on the operational side. However, we did identify several capital projects that can be either deferred or removed from the plan. So the first is the installation of a fiber optic connection between the biosolids composting facility and the leachate treatment plant, which we think can be deferred for a couple of years. There's also a number of capital projects at the Courtney Pump Station and the Jane Place Pump Station that we now know, so since the last financial planning process, that will be redundant with the liquid waste management planning conveyance project. So those include replacement of some key major components at those pump stations. So given that the LWMP is very likely to involve replacement or major upgrades of those facilities, we're taking the opportunity now to remove those from the plan, and they've provided some savings over the next 2 years, which equate to about $800,000. So we put forth 2 options for how those savings can be used. The first one is the recommended option, which would see us use these savings to reduce the required requisition increase. So right now there's a scheduled increase, scheduled increases to the requisition for each of the 5-year of the plan. And what we're proposing to do is use that $800,000 savings to reduce the increase in the next 2 years. The second option would be to direct those savings instead into the capital replacement works reserve to help the service address any unforeseen impacts from the COVID pandemic and or help us meet a myriad of capital costs that are facing the service. So in addition to those cost savings, we're also proposing to offer the Skyrocket compost for free to municipalities for their public works operations for the next 2 years. We're thinking that this could help take some of the pressure off the municipal organics. I'm just thinking of that recent letter sent from the commission to the municipalities requesting that they switch from the municipal organics to the Skyrocket product. And we're also hoping that this could stimulate some additional long-term demand for the product once the public works operators understand what a great product we're producing. I think there's potentially some misperceptions about the product that could potentially be resolved if they could get it free of charge for a couple of years. And we typically do end the year with a little bit of extra product. So this might also help us get all of the product out the door. And lastly, we are participating, along with the water service in the interregional mutual aid agreement with the jurisdictions to the south. And then the local mutual aid agreement with some of the smaller water and sewer purveyors to ensure coverage for everyone should staffing levels fall before emergency levels due to the pandemic. Happy to answer any questions.
And we have Director Swift first.
Thanks, Chris. I noted with some concern here that the liquid waste management plan I believe originally we were supposed to meet in September, and I note that it's moved to November now. And so I guess what I'm concerned about is having it delayed again for another year. We don't know what's going to happen with perhaps the second wave. And I'm just wondering if we have any kind of workaround to keep, other than all the work that's going on behind the scenes, which I understand, but if we have any workaround to bring the public engagement piece to the fore so that it actually happens.
Sure, yeah. So the original plan was actually to bring it forward in June. So that was pre-COVID. So we had actually just initiated the public engagement process in March, which would have got us towards to a recommendation in June when COVID struck. So we brought forward a report in April that recommended delaying that to November. So we're still working hard and on track to bringing forward a recommended or preferred conveyance solution to the commission in late November. So that's still our expectation. And so what that will include is or involve will be that same public consultation period that we had initiated and aborted in early this year, being started in early September and running for about 4 weeks. And then along with either virtual open houses or in-person open houses, and then 2 tack-back meetings happening at the end of September and early October, all to get us in the position of being able to recommend a path forward to the commission in late November.
Oh, let me put you back on there. There you go.
Thank you. I guess I misunderstood it. I thought by my reading of it, I thought the meetings had been delayed until November, but if we're carrying on in September or October, that's great. So
Gotcha. Yeah. So the public meetings have been are carrying on. We have seen about a 2 or 3 week delay. I mean, that's more related to the technical work that's ongoing on Lazo Hill and actually starting this weekend on Comox Hill. So that work has been a little bit more involved than we had expected. There was some results on the Lazo Hill that have encouraged us to go back and take a second look. So that's what's driving the 2 or 3 week delay. So we're currently just in the process of shuffling those dates back by 2 or 3 weeks, but we still expect to initiate those in September. Yeah.
And I'll pass it over to Director Hamilton, and I see Director Bissinger is next up there.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks so much for the report, Chris. I just wanted to know a little bit more about the 2 projects that are being deferred, as of the fiber optic cable installation. I'm just be curious to know what the purpose was for that, and the infrastructure upgrades at Courtney and Jane Place pump stations. It says that they'll be redundant with the LWMP conveyance project. So wondering if you just explain what they were and how they were made redundant. Sure.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So the first project relating to communications at the compost facility. Associated with construction of the leachate treatment plant was a direct connection to the I think it's the telecommunications tower at the landfill site. So the compost facility is not directly connected and experiences intermittent connection. So the purpose of that project was to establish a direct connection with the leachate plant, which is already directly connected to the communication tower. So that's the purpose there. So we've managed to this point with those intermittent that intermittent connection. So I think we can manage another couple of years. But long term, we definitely want to have that connected with a hard wire to ensure that we're not missing any alarms up at that facility. The other one was kind of a set of projects. So these have been kind of on the books and initiated from our asset management plan, which, if you remember, this service has had an asset management plan for over 12 or 14 years. So those projects have been kind of on the horizon and approaching. And as we do with all projects, we reassess the need on an annual basis, and actually reassess it over the coming 5 years. So the plan of kind of capital upgrades at our facilities is constantly being adjusted as the LWMP has once it was initiated. These projects that were already there, we've kind of been pushing them back a year. This LWMP has taken a little longer, the process, than we had expected. The question might come up, why didn't you take these projects off last year? I think we just weren't as far along in our understanding of where this process is going to take us, that we felt confident in removing them. But we do now. So one of the projects, for example, is replacement. Actually, both facilities need their backup generators replaced because they are at or slightly past their expected lifespan. However, we continue to maintain those units, and we're not concerned, at a further delay of 2 years, which is what we expect, is how long we expect the LWMP process to take. So those are the two biggest ones. There's also an air handling unit at one of the stations. So those are the types of projects that we're talking about. So they're kind of major component replacement at those auxiliary components at those two facilities, which when we, so part of inherent to the conveyance solutions that we're bringing forward are either rebuilding or rehabilitating both of those facilities, which includes those types of line items in them. So continuing to carry those through would have there would be redundancy or duplication of those costs. So we took this opportunity to remove them we're recommending removal of those from the financial plan.
So it seems likely that those items would have probably been removed anyway at some point, but the updates, because you're going through the COVID update, that was when you decided to sort of just clarify that they would not take place.
Yeah, that's exactly right. If this COVID hadn't happened or this renewal planning process hadn't occurred, then we would have likely removed those from the financial plan this coming budget cycle.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thanks for the clarification, Chris.
Yeah.
And before I pass it off to Director Bissinger, is it worthwhile noting that some of these projects no longer need to be done, but some of them are just being put off as well? Because the LWMP has been put off a bit, or am I wrong in thinking that?
They all need to be done. The fiber connection can be deferred, and the others, we're just removing a potential duplication.
Right.
So, yeah. So they will be replaced, but they arguably there's already there was previously some duplication between the large capital estimates that we've currently got in the financial plan for the LWMP and these smaller items. So we're removing that duplication.
And is it also worth noting that we're likely looking at a fairly large borrowing for the LWMP for the new conveyance in the upgrades? And so we are going to need money to some degree in the future anyways. And if you can just let me know if I'm not putting words in your mouth, and then what are our reserves at right now?
Okay, so the first question, we are approaching the end of the planning process, and it's quite possible that the phased approach to the infrastructure could rise to the top, in which case our current the capital estimates we're carrying in the budget will be will be brought down significantly. We're currently carrying $45 million in the budget for the LWMP conveyance work. If the phased approach were to rise to the top through the LWMP process, that'll be brought down to 30. So that will have a corresponding pretty significant reduction on the requisition amount. At this point, we're just not, we're not able to predict where that LWMP will take us.
But we don't have 30 million.
Right.
Right.
Almost all of that will be borrowed.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
And so do you happen to know what our reserves are at right now? Do we have $1 million or $500,000 or?
No, I don't have the exact dollar value in front of me right now, but it's on the order of 6 or 7 million. But we are anticipating to bring that down
Right.
to almost nothing. We won't allow it to fall below 1 or 1.5 million, just because we need some contingency to cover unforeseen events. But we are planning to draw it down to that minimum level as a result of the work that's ongoing this year and next. Yeah.
Just this year and next, not
Yeah.
having to do with conveyance?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so I'll just pass it off to Director Bissinger and get back to my thoughts. Yeah, you go
Sure,
ahead.
thank you. Thank you. And I guess I appreciate the intent of the COVID impact reduction plan that staff has put together. I guess I've got a few questions. I guess one is like, I'm always hesitant to defer projects into the future that we can get now, just there's always cost escalation, inflation and whatnot. So it's always, more expensive to delay something to the future if we can just do it now. And I guess the second thing too, like, I'm not sure where Courtney stands, but I know like Comox, 91% of our residents have paid their taxes. So in my mind, if we can get those projects, those capital projects, or at least that one capital project that makes sense to do now, if we can do that and then keep the rest in reserve, sort of what option 2 is saying. And my other thought is, it seems like the light industrial sectors have been a lot slower. So I'm not sure if that's been considered in the financial plan. Like D&D is only working at 50% capacity. So that's less sewage coming from D&D. They're upgrading the roads, all the sewers, all the water lines. So there'll be less I&I from D&D. The schools might be shut down in September if there's a big second wave, who knows? Like the swimming pool has been closed and probably won't reopen anytime soon. So there's a lot of light industrial, restaurants, whatever, that have slowed down quite a bit. So I don't know if that's been accounted for, or if they just pay like a one-time fee for their taxes and that's it, or if they're actually billed like per the cubic meterage. But I could see that sort of having an impact. So I'm kind of hesitant to just right away, like, either give back that money or just reduce next year's collection or whatever in the taxes. So I don't know, Chris, if you can answer some of that, and maybe the chair knows the numbers for Courtney in terms of taxes, but I feel like a service like sewage, I don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot and not have enough in the reserves and not have enough collected and able to actually maintain the service as it is right now, considering lower flows.
You go ahead.
Sure, yeah. So speaking from the services perspective, because of the way the municipal requisition works, a decline in wastewater generation will not translate to a decline in revenue. So at the end, periodically through the year, the actual costs are split between the participants based on the metering of the wastewater flows. So could it affect the ratio of cost between the participants? Possibly, but it won't affect, like, we will still recover the full cost of running the service. So I think I can put your mind at ease on that end. I can't necessarily speak with confidence though to how it works on the municipal side, but I feel that almost all customers are billed a flat rate. So I don't see any impact to the municipal revenue or decreased sewer revenue to the municipalities, but that'd be more of a question for your staff. But that's my sense of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I guess the benefit to lowering the taxes would be that we could pass on those savings, but I don't know what those numbers are. I mean, if you're suggesting next year at, this would be incremental, I guess, $526,000, our portion of that might be half of it, or maybe a little bit more. It is a substantial number, but at the same time, I'm also worried about where that leaves our reserves. Would it be wiser? I wonder if our staff had any comments when it was provided at the technical committee. Did they have any thoughts on whether we could really use those discounts next year, or? What was their feeling on that?
My recollection of that conversation was that the municipal staff were supportive of the recommended approach, so to
Mhm.
pass the savings on, but an acknowledgement that at the end of the day, it is a political decision rather than an operational or staff.
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Does anyone else have any thoughts or questions? Director Bissinger, you still have your mic on. Did you want to follow up?
Yeah, I guess just sort of, what you're saying there, Chair Frisch, it's kind of, in my mind, if you pass those savings on now and then do an increase next year, your percentage will be higher than if you don't do the savings and still do an increase, but you might do a 1% increase versus like a 5% increase. So even just the perception and like, overall, it might be the same amount that you're saving over 2 years versus over 1 year or whatever. But I know the perception also, like from a political point of view, when you're doing a 5% increase in taxes, it's a lot less received than if you're only doing like a 2%. But if you do 2% 2 years in a row, it's less bad than doing like a 5%. You know what I mean? Like it's.
I get it. I wonder
Like-
if, sorry to cut you off.
Nope,
But
go ahead.
I think I get the gist, and I wonder if it was considered to do sort of a partial reduction in fees, like earmark to save 400,000 for the municipalities, but keep 400,000 going to our reserves. Does that make any sense? Did that make any sense to any staff members?
That's an option, but I think the savings provided are sort of marginal. It's either one or the other.
Okay. I'll pass it over to Director Moran. Oh, I thought, sorry, I missed the button.
Great, thank you, Chair. This probably seems very trivial, but I know that with the Courtney pump station, Courtney was going to kind of piggyback on that project with some enhanced facilities there. So I wondered if that's going to impact that plan, if Courtney's staff had any comments about that. If it's deferred, then
Well-
any other improvements will be deferred as well,
What were we
possibly.
thinking of doing?
Is
do you
this not
remember?
maybe I've got the wrong,
I'm not sure. I don't
Oh,
recall,
okay.
but maybe you're right. And
okay, so
No.
maybe that's not.
were
the
we going to
case.
put a toilet at one of our pump stations? I do remember
Okay.
that. Is that possible?
Well, I thought that, okay, so I've got the wrong
I'm drawing a
project
blank on
probably
that too. I
then.
don't think we had
Okay,
any synergies there with.
all
the
right, it's
cities.
probably a different project. I was trying to find it in my capital projects here, but,
Okay.
okay, thanks.
And Director Grant?
Yeah, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is a little bit like the water one where we reduce it here, but we can charge what we like at the municipality. So if you wanted to hold that money in reserve in Courtney, you could certainly do that. You could charge what you were normally going to. So there's a fail safe here, I guess, is what I'm thinking, if I've got that correct.
But I don't know if
I
we
think I
could-
do.
I don't know if we could put the money in a reserve to later then go to the RD in a future year. I don't know if we have a reserve for that in particular. It's usually more capital projects.
Yeah, we've got, but when I look at this, the other question I had for Chris was, I know we were looking at a phased approach with the conveyance up to Brent Road. And part of that was to leave the pipe that's already along the beach for 15 or 20 years or whatever that number comes to. But we know we're going to need to replace that in the future. So it would be interesting to know on these how much of an impact this would have per household. Because if it's $2 or $3, it's one thing. If it's 200 or 300, it's another. And I don't have any feel for what the impact per house is. And you guys probably wouldn't know that either.
Sorry, of the savings or?
Yeah, because we're saving roughly, if I'm doing my math quick, it's about $400,000 over a 2-year piece here. So our portion would be, say, 100,000 of that. How big of an impact is that per house?
Yeah.
That's what I don't know.
Yeah, it'd be fairly minimal on the order of
Yeah, I would
$5
think.
to $10, something of that.
Yeah,
yeah.
so we're not talking hundreds and hundreds of dollars per house here.
No.
Yeah, and that was my
No.
gut too, is
Yeah.
that I don't know that we're making massive savings. Well, when we talk about a 1% increase on households, do you remember, Director Cole Hamilton, what that number was? If we increased our taxes by 1%, how much that was on an average household? Yeah, it was 200,000, but what is that per average household? I don't remember. Yeah,
Roughly 80,000 is 1%.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I could go either way. Obviously, the recommendation is to pass on the savings, but is there a way to split this? We could split this motion up. We have the following recommendation. We could split it into two to compost, to separate the skyrocket issue from the fees and charges savings. Does that make sense to you guys? Yeah. Okay, does anyone else have any other comments? Yeah, sorry, Director Swift, go ahead.
I guess my only comment is in option 2, the increase is minimal. Well, it's gradual and the same over the 5 years, whereas there's quite a jump there from 2022 to 2023, which kind of concerns me. So, I mean, I'm kind of leaning to option 2, actually.
Okay. Anyone else have anything to add to the conversation? We don't have a lot of time, but do we expect to lose a bit of money on the skyrocket issue if we give it away? Oh, I'm sorry, you turned it off.
We don't expect to lose any money, no. We
Because
do
we
have
have excess.
surplus at the end of the
Okay.
year. And so we're hoping to generate some sales that we're not currently seeing. And we don't have a significant amount of skyrocket currently being bought by the municipality. So yeah, no negligible impact.
And if there are no more questions, I think I'll just call the question on receipt of the report. Is anyone opposed to receipt of the report? Okay, so that's received unanimously, and maybe we'll just split this up and we'll actually start with the second part of the recommendation, which is that the municipal fee rates for skyrocket compost provided by bylaw number 71, fees and charges bylaw number 71 be waived until the end of 2022. Somebody,
I'll move that.
and direct your mic on, Director Cole Hamilton, do you want to speak to that one? Or you're just waiting?
No,
To...
it's just putting it on, so just move for a second.
Okay. And I don't see any discussion on that. I'll do a roll call for this. Alternate Director Bissinger,
In favor?
Director Grant, Director Swift, Director Cole Hamilton.
In favor?
Oh, sorry, I didn't turn anyone's mic on, so my apologies. Director Morin. And I'm in favor. That was unanimous for those that are zooming in. And then on the second part of that, does anyone want to suggest a motion for that? I don't see.
I'll make,
You'll make it? Okay, go ahead.
well, I'll make a motion for option 2, sort of what Director Swift was getting at.
Is that clear? Yeah, is that clear to staff? Yeah. Okay, is there any more discussion on that? Not seeing any, I will do a roll call and I'll try and get your mics on if you press them right now. Starting with alternate Director Bissinger.
In favor?
Director Cole Hamilton.
In favor?
Director Grant. In favor. Director Morin.
In favor.
And Director Swift.
In favor?
And I'm also in favor. Did I miss anyone? No, that was unanimous. Thank you. And actually, I think that's it. So we'll move on to termination. Thanks.
Second.
Wonderful.
Favor.
And you're in favor. Okay. Thanks for dropping in.
Okay, thanks you guys. Have a good meeting later.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone.